There was a lot that went on this offseason, from Matt Stafford being traded for 2 first-round picks and Jared Goff, from Tom Brady coming back for his 22nd NFL season, from Sam Darnold being traded to the Carolina Panthers, and of course with that, former Panther quarterback Teddy Bridgewater went to the Denver Broncos, and of course generational talent Trevor Lawrence was drafted by the Jacksonville Jaguars #1 overall. Needless to say, this has been a very eventful offseason, and with the Hall of Fame game being played last night and with football officially returning, I do think it is a good time to review some of the best decisions that were made this offseason, some of the best acquisitions that were made offseason, and conversely, along with that, some of the worst moves and worst acquisitions that were made in this offseason. Now, I want to make something as crystal clear as possible. Just because I say the first thing we're going to talk about for either side does not mean that is the definitive best decision made or definitive worst decision made. And that's one thing I do want to make clear, is we are not ranking these decisions that were made and these offseason acquisitions and moves that were made. We are simply saying that they were some of the best or some of the worst. Now, before we dive into each of those, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, as each only take a second to do, and it would be very much appreciated. Now, let's begin. And the first move and big win from this offseason across the NFL that we are going to discuss is the Kansas City Chiefs and all of their offensive line moves. Of course, they made a big trade with fellow AFC contender the Baltimore Ravens to acquire tackle Orlando Brown in essentially what was just a pick swap. And when you can go from the 31st overall pick to the late second round, essentially is what the trade was, to get a player in Orlando Brown's caliber, well, that's a pretty big win for the Kansas City Chiefs. And not only did they do that, but they also signed guard Joe Thuney to a 5-year deal, which will only ensure protection for franchise quarterback Patrick Mahomes. And if you may be wondering or thinking to yourself, the Chiefs have all of this money invested in the offense. With Patrick Mahomes, of course, they will have to pay Orlando Brown. You would imagine they didn't just trade him to not re-sign him. Of course, the big contract with Joe Thuney that they signed him to, Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, you pretty quickly realize that there is $100 million plus tied up in this offense. Of course, Patrick Mahomes' contract too. So, the reason why I like this so much is when you have a player of Patrick Mahomes' caliber, you are doing everything you can to ensure that the points are put up and that Patrick is in the best position to succeed. Now, if that requires a deficiency on defense or a defense that may be average or even below average, you are doing that to ensure the Chiefs' offense is up there with the best of them and that they can compete with anybody, and they most certainly can. Ironically, as I say that, they put up just 9 points in the most recent game they played, which of course was the Super Bowl, but again, that is probably going to prove to be an outlier over the course of time rather than the standard, as if the Chiefs finish bottom 5 in scoring in any of the next 5 seasons, assuming Patrick Mahomes stays healthy, then consider me shocked. And when you have a franchise quarterback in Patrick Mahomes signed to the contract that he is, you have to do everything in your power to protect him and to maximize his success along with that. And they did that this offseason, so I really love what they did this offseason with improving the offensive line. Now, the first big decision from this past offseason that I was not a big fan of as we close the offseason and head into the NFL season was the Panthers trading for Sam Darnold and then passing over Justin Fields. Now, when they made this trade, I assumed that they didn't think any of the top 4 quarterbacks were going to be there at number 8 overall when they selected, and that their choice would be either Mac Jones or Teddy Bridgewater heading into the season if they did not make this move for Sam Darnold. And honestly, I would prefer Sam Darnold over Mac Jones at this point. Could Mac Jones become a solid NFL starter? Yes, but I don't think I would rely my whole future on him to pair with Christian McCaffrey and DJ Moore. I think I would rather roll the dice on a less trade asset player like Sam Darnold. Now, do I think Mac Jones will be a more successful quarterback at the NFL level than Sam Darnold was with the Jets? I mean, yes, probably, because Sam wasn't all that successful with the Jets, and there was a reason they moved on from him after 3 seasons and took quarterback Zach Wilson at number 2 overall. There's a reason for that. Whether you agree that Sam did not have help or anything like that, look, there's a reason he was traded for a 2, 4, and a 6, and I would have rather have traded that for Sam Darnold than have Mac Jones for the foreseeable future, personally. But I did not agree with them doing that and then passing over Justin Fields, because I'm a huge fan of Justin Fields and think he will be a very good NFL quarterback, and I don't think prospects like Justin Fields come around all that often, and pairing him with a player like Christian McCaffrey and then giving him a solid receiver in DJ Moore and of course Robbie Anderson, I think that's going to be a decision that will prove the Panthers regret, regardless of how good J.C. Horn is. Look, I like J.C. Horn a lot, I just don't like him as a prospect more than I did Justin Fields in terms of helping a franchise's long-term success, and that's why in today's video, I think the Panthers had a wrong decision made in terms of rolling with Sam Darnold, passing over Justin Fields, and taking J.C. Horn at number 8 overall. Now, the next big winner or the next move that I absolutely loved for a franchise, and I realized that he just had a little tweak in practice the other day, but the Eagles trading up in front of the division rival New York Giants, who we all assume were going to take wide receiver Devontae Smith at number 11 overall, for them to take him for themselves and get a number 1 receiver that they missed out on last year, or at least Jalen Reagor does not at this point in his career look to be the receiver that Justin Jefferson will be for the next 5 years or even for the next decade. So for them to get a true number 1 receiver, a Heisman winner, and a player that will probably be the starting Eagles number 1 wide receiver for the next decade, to get that player instead of having to play that player for the next decade is a huge win for them, and conversely it is a huge loss for the Giants to not be able to get that player. Granted, the Giants' loss was kind of preserved by getting an additional first-round pick by moving back and then getting a receiver in Kadarius Toney, so I do like that. It's not a complete just loss, and that the difference between Devontae Smith and Kadarius Toney and an additional first-round pick is miles, because it is not, but I do think the Giants would have rather had Devontae Smith rather than Kadarius Toney and a first-round pick. Obviously, I can't make that decision, or I can't fully confirm that, but I would personally prefer having a player of Devontae Smith's caliber than a player of Kadarius Toney's caliber. That's just me. But I do think the Eagles made a huge win for them, and the Giants had, unfortunately, a somewhat modified loss in terms of that. They did get the additional first-round pick, which again was good for them, and it worked out that way. Had it not, though, at pick 11 and they took Kadarius Toney after missing out on Devontae Smith, then that would have been a huge whiff, but the Giants did kind of preserve that loss with an additional first-round pick. So it kind of worked out, but I do think the Eagles took home a very big W here. Now, one of the next biggest wins in terms of the whole NFL offseason was the Los Angeles Chargers drafting at number 13 overall and getting a franchise left tackle in Rashawn Slater. Obviously, we all know, and everyone watching this video knows, how good of a rookie season Justin Herbert had, and how do you sustain his durability long term. Justin Herbert is not a small guy by any means, and he can probably, in reality, take a lot more hits than most quarterbacks can, but over the long term, that doesn't mean let's just give him a poor offensive line and let him go and just see how he does. No, you still want to protect him and invest everything around him and really have him flourish as much as he can, and they did that in drafting arguably the best tackle in the draft in Rashawn Slater. There were rumors all throughout the draft process that some teams had Rashawn Slater above Penei Sewell. Now, I don't know how many teams actually had him above Penei Sewell, but that was a rumor all throughout the draft process, and it may have been just a rumor just to try to get Penei to slide. Anyways, Rashawn Slater is still a phenomenal pick for the Los Angeles Chargers, and this is exactly the type of player that you want to protect your franchise quarterback for the next decade. So for the Chargers to stay put and get him at number 13 overall and not have to sacrifice either later draft capital, as in like a 3rd or 4th round pick, or maybe even a 2nd round pick had Penei gone in the top 4 or 5 picks, and they might have had to trade up to the 6th or the 7th pick to assure that they would get Rashawn Slater. The Chargers stayed put, got an elite player, and drafted a probable multiple-time Pro Bowler in the future in Rashawn Slater. Now, one more final move that I absolutely loved this offseason was getting Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa some help. Now, last year, as we know, Tua did not have the best rookie season to say the least, and in an era of just technology and the way people are, patience is a virtue that some people simply do not have, and Tua having the rookie season that he had has largely been a reason why people call him a bust already, and I am not one of those people, granted, but there are a lot of people that already think Tua can't do it at the NFL level and that he is not going to ever pan out. But the reality is we need to have some patience, have him work with other guys and work with other coaches and work with better receivers than what he had in year number 1, and he is going to do that this year, and having a former college teammate in Jalen Waddle, and then of course the addition of Will Fuller, and another year to get more comfortable with Devontae Parker, well, not surprisingly, Tua should improve big time in year number 2. And another reason why Tua may not have performed well in his rookie year was, think about this for a second. Did Tua, or any other rookie quarterback for that matter, have a preseason to iron some of the wrinkles out that they may not have had in live game reps? Because practice, even though they can practice as hard as they want, it is a lot different from games. Did they have a preseason to iron some of those wrinkles out with receivers that they may not have been familiar with, like Tua with Devontae Parker, for example? The answer to that, obviously not in 2020, given what we were going through as a world, not just in the football world. So I do think Tua getting more weapons will only benefit him, and I think there was a reason why he was selected number 5 overall. Now, will Tua, the selection of that, always look probably less than Justin Herbert? It may, depending on how Tua does this year, but at the same time, Tua has to focus on him and the Dolphins only. He can't be worried about proving people wrong about Justin Herbert, because him comparing himself to Justin Herbert for the rest of time probably won't end well because of how good Justin Herbert is. But Tua can be a very good quarterback in his own rights, and the Dolphins are doing everything they can to get more weapons around Tua Tagovailoa early rather than later, and I think we will see a big improvement in him this year. Anyways, that's all I have for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. We changed it up a little bit again, and I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. So if you did, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It would mean the world. And until next time, have a great day. Comment any videos below you'd like to see in the future. Have a great day. Love you guys. Deuces. Peace.